Tony Ferguson is coming back to fight Michael Chandler at the UFC 274 this Saturday. And man, I haven't seen Tony Ferguson for such a time, and I'm conflicted, when it comes to this fight because Tony Ferguson spoke to the media and he was spitting some facts, like he's clearly not happy and he has not been happy with the UFC for a long time. He's said some of the things like when the Bernard Dariush broke his foot, like there is no health care for the UFC fighters, so he didn't even get the flight back, so he had to basically just deal with it by himself, you know. Like he's been the company man for a long time. He fought anyone on a short notices. He fought killers. He fought Charles Oliveira, the current champion, on a short notice. So Tony Ferguson has been there for the company, but the company has not been there for him. And it looks like to me that based on what he said to the media is that he's not expecting for to be in the company for a much longer time because like I think he feels like if he loses this fight, he is gonna be cut by the company. Maybe that's what they told him, but we don't have that confirmed. And Michael Chandler, like he didn't lie when he said that he's there for a good time, not for a long time. Like he fought all the killers since he came to the UFC. He fought for the title. He fought Gaethje in one of the greatest fights of all time, and now he's gonna fight Tony Ferguson. And I think that Michael Chandler is ready for it. So let's look into this fight and let's see, how they stand. So first of all, let's look at Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson got kind of exploited in his, in his grappling skills, even though like we've always been saying his whole career, like, oh, Tony can fight off his back and stuff like that. However, he got fairly manhandled by Oliveira, and then he got manhandled by Dariush. But those two guys are like high level grapplers. Michael Chandler, even though he's been saying that he's a wrestler, he never utilized his wrestling in any of the UFC fights, and he's always the one guy that comes there to a bang, to just like to strike with his opponents. So I don't think that when it comes to grappling, Tony Ferguson has anything, to be afraid of, unless he shows like very big weaknesses. Michael Chandler, on the other hand, he's not gonna utilize his wrestling skills. Like he didn't do it against any of the fighters. No, he didn't try to wrestle against Gaethje, even though he shoot for one takedown, basically. He didn't try to wrestle with Oliveira. He didn't try to wrestle with Hooker, even though he finished him. So I don't think that Michael Chandler is gonna utilize his wrestling because he is the fan favorite fighter in the sense like, oh, I'm gonna go there and I'm just gonna strike and I'm gonna just try to knock this guy out. Tony Ferguson, when it comes to striking, there is few things. Tony Ferguson has a very good cardio and he's a very good pressure fighter. So if Michael Chandler tries to fight his game, he might be in a lot of trouble. Because we've seen with the Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson could not pressure Justin Gaethje because he's just a wild man and he's willing to go punch for punch. So is Michael Chandler. But with the Michael Chandler's fight with Justin Gaethje, we've seen that Michael Chandler is more of kind of an explosive fighter. Like, hey, I'm going to explode with a couple of punches, take a step back, explode again, step back. But if you keep on going with Tony Ferguson, you can end up like Donald Cerrone. Like his face looked like mush after the first round. So if Tony really prepared himself, and if he's really focused, and if the game's gonna be just pure striking, I think Tony has a chin solid enough so that Michael Chandler will not knock him out, and I think he does have endurance enough to strike with Michael Chandler. However, if this was a 5-round fight, my money would be on Tony Ferguson. But it's a 3-round fight. And I think that Michael Chandler has enough of a gas tank to just keep on going for those 3 rounds straight. Just keep on onslaught and fight. So Tony Ferguson might not be able to utilize his cardio and his endurance. So what else is there to look into the fight? I mean, Tony Ferguson didn't fight in a while. It's a big red flag because people say the ring rust is pretty real. Then also in the Tony's last fight, he didn't have any coaches. You cannot expect to go and fight the best guys in the world if you stay inactive And if you don't have any coaches, or if they give you, like bad advices, it's just not gonna work. Then on the other hand, there is another thing like there's the first thing. There's another thing that works against Tony, and there's like we can see from his talking to media that he's not satisfied with the company, you know. And if you're not completely focused on the fight, it might become a big deal, for your mental health, especially for the mental readiness for a tough fight, which Michael Chandler is. He's a very tough fight. So I think Tony Ferguson is already looking like for a way out from the UFC, and this could play out very badly in his match. And the third, Tony Ferguson, despite the fact that he's 38 years old and he's only 2 years older than Michael Chandler, he looks much older. Like he looks like he's aging much faster than Michael Chandler. So these three factors, I think, could play a huge role in this match. Michael Chandler, on the other hand, I think he understood that he's there in the UFC to fight the big fights. He brings the fire, he fights the fight the way the fans like it, and he's getting big names. So he fought Dan Hooker, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, and now Tony Ferguson. Like, those are huge names. And I think that Michael Chandler, he showed a lot of heart against Justin Gaethje, because Justin Gaethje was landing huge shots. So we can see that Michael Chandler is pretty durable, even though Charles Oliveira knocked him out, right? But like, he is still pretty freaking durable. Then I haven't seen Michael Chandler utilize his so-called great wrestling skills. We've seen him having some grappling exchanges with Kamaru Usman, and they looked great, but we haven't seen him utilize it. So Michael Chandler is still kind of intriguing fighter, and even though he sounds like a motivational speaker, it's hard to dislike the guy, because he puts his money where his mouth is. He comes to an octagon, he puts it all on the line, he tries to strike with the dangerous strikers like Justin Gaethje, he fights with all the best guys, and he almost finished Charles Oliveira. People forget that. He almost became the UFC champion. He was this close to it. So Tony Ferguson, even though, man, I really hate to see going Tony Ferguson down like this, because people forget how good he was, and he was on a huge winning streak, and the UFC just, just didn't care. And, Michael Chandler said that he is the Dana White's favorite fighter, and Tony Ferguson is not. So I don't know. I think this fight, even though it's a very good fight on the paper, this fight could signal the end of one of the greatest careers in the UFC lightweight division. I really hope that Tony Ferguson will not go down the way he lost to Justin Gaethje, because I think that Michael Chandler has the capacity to inflict a lot of damage on Tony Ferguson. So I really hope this fight will end up in a unanimous decision win by Michael Chandler. I really hope, even though I don't want to, I think Tony Ferguson always has chance, especially if Michael Chandler just, will go and, stop thinking about the game plan, lying in the fight against Justin Gaethje, where he basically just went and stopped thinking, So if Michael Chandler tries to prove himself against Tony Ferguson, I think Tony Ferguson, that's the only way how Tony Ferguson can win. Like, literally, that's his only way. And otherwise, I don't see him winning. I believe, when it comes to prediction, I believe that Michael Chandler can take home the unanimous decision win in those 3 rounds. And I believe he can do it in a sort of dominant fashion. So what do you guys think? Do you think that Tony Ferguson will retire or will be fired from the UFC if he loses this fight? Or do you actually think that Tony Ferguson can win this fight? Like, holy shit, can you imagine? Can you imagine? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And I will see you in the next one. Cheers.